Welcome. I'm E.G. Marshall. As a teller of mysterious tales, I'm often asked, how much is fact and how much fiction? Almost as often, the answer is another question. Who really knows? And if I'm going to be asked about the story you're going to hear now, let the asker be forewarned. The answer will be that question. Who really knows? You may believe it's all fiction if you choose to, but I'd like to see you prove it. Our mystery drama, The Widow's Auxiliary, was written especially for the Mystery Theater by Fielden Farrington and stars Lenka Peterson. There are special days in everyone's life. Sad days, days of elation, ordeal, decision. In short, pivotal days. Carl Sims has awakened to such a day. His perfectly good breakfast scarcely tasted. He's pacing the floor, waiting until it's time to leave to catch his train into the city. Julie, the lovely wife who prepared the uneaten breakfast, thinks he's overdoing it.
Honestly, Carl, I've never seen you so jumpy.
But the executive club, Julie, don't you know what that means?
Well, I know that the meeting isn't until 8:30 tonight. If you carry on like this all day, you'll be a litter case by then.
So I'm nervous. I'll be all right.
But I can't understand what makes you so nervous. Mr. Lathrop asked you to join the club, didn't he?
He asked me if he might put my name up for membership.
Well, then.
Oh, can't you see? This isn't just another club, Julie. Every member of the executive club is an important man. And if he isn't important when he joins, he gets important.
I like you just the way you are.
My boss, J.D. Mason, the president of Gotham Engineering, in case you've forgotten, is a member of the executive club. Can't you see what that means, Julie?
What I can see is that you're going to miss your train if you don't take off.
What? Oh, yes, I better go. I'll be home as early as I can. We'll want an early dinner, and... Yes, I better get going.
How about a little kiss for luck?
Oh, yeah. Don't forget, early dinner.
Carl, you forgot your briefcase. I hope he remembers which train he's supposed to take.
Good morning. You're Julie Sims, aren't you?
Yes.
I'm Rose Lathrop. I hope you don't mind my barging in like this without any notice or anything.
Oh, of course not. Come in.
Thank you. I know it's outrageously early, but I wanted to be sure to catch you before you went out or something.
It's perfectly all right. Won't you sit down? Are you Mrs. Alfred Lathrop? Your husband's the executive club man?
That's right. Mrs. Sims, would you mind if I called you Julie?
Of course not.
And I'm Rose. Mm-hmm. Julie, how do you feel about your husband joining the executive club?
Oh, frankly, Rose... It doesn't make much difference to me one way or the other. If Carl wants it, I guess I'm glad.
Well, I came here this morning to advise you, as strongly as I can, keep your husband out of the executive club.
I see.
No, you don't see at all. It's not the snobbish kind of thing you're thinking. It's for his own good. His and yours. You'll be sorry for the rest of your life if you let him join that club.
And yet apparently you let your husband join.
And I'm sorry.
Well, why?
I can't tell you why. At this point, I'm afraid to.
Afraid?
Yes. Oh, and please don't mention any of this to your husband. I mean that I've been here, what I've said, any of it.
We don't have many secrets from each other, Carl and I.
Well, please keep this one. I can't tell you why just yet, but it's very important to me.
All right, if you say so.
Thank you.
Does the executive club have anything like a woman's auxiliary?
Oh, no, nothing at all of that kind. I wouldn't call it the woman's auxiliary, even if there was one. I think it might be better named the widow's auxiliary.
Widows? Oh, you mean like golf widows, that kind of thing?
No, my dear. I'm afraid I don't mean that at all. I mean exactly what I say.
Yes, Clara, what is it?
Mr. Lathrop is here to see you, Mr. Mason.
Oh, all right, Clara. Send him in, please.
Not interrupting anything, am I, J.D.?
No, not at all, Alfred. Sit down. I've been wanting to talk to you anyway about our man Sims.
Oh, Carl Sims, yes. I'm putting him up for membership in the club tonight, you know.
Yes, and you won't be sorry. I really think he'll work out well. Tractable. Knows how to handle himself. I think I'll put him in charge of Project Overlook if he passes muster tonight.
Fine. I don't think there'll be any trouble about getting him in. It's mostly my recommendation, you know.
Yes. Any news at all from upstairs? Myra 7?
I don't think it's wise to use that name even here, though I'm sure you're not bugged. No, I have not been in touch with upstairs. Not for a couple of weeks now.
Well, I was just wondering what they think of our progress on Project Overlook. We've been working hard.
His Excellency has been alerted that I'll be requesting an audience tonight. If there's time and if he seems, you know, in the right mood, I'll ask him.
Yes. Well, don't push it. Tell him, if you want to, that I absolutely endorse Carl Sims. It might make a difference.
I'll tell him if I get the chance. But he makes up his own mind. You know that.
Oh, yes, as he should. As he should.
Carl, eat it. It's steak. I almost had to take out a second mortgage.
Oh, yeah, very good, too. Done just right.
Well, then eat it.
Sure.
Carl, if you're accepted tonight in the club, you know, that doesn't mean you absolutely have to join, does it?
Have to? Why on earth wouldn't I want to?
I don't know. I've just been thinking about it, that's all. Doesn't it seem to you that anything that offers so many advantages as you think this club does, well, mightn't there be some disadvantages, too?
Name me one.
Well, I can't, of course. It's just that nothing is perfect. I'm looking for the catch, that's all.
How would it be, Julie, if you just left that to me? I think I'm perfectly capable.
Always the phone at dinner time.
Want me to get it?
No, I'll go.
If it's Alfred Lathrop, tell him I'm ready anytime he is.
Hello?
Julie, this is Rose Lathrop.
Oh, hi.
Alfred says Carl's going to stop by and pick him up so they can go to the meeting together.
Oh, Carl didn't mention it.
So why don't you come with him? The two of us can sit here together and wait out the decision.
Oh, that's very sweet of you. Yes, I'd like to.
Good. Is Carl still...
Determined? Yes.
Yes, that's the way it goes. Okay, see you later.
Was that Lathrop? Is he ready to go?
No, it was his wife. She suggested that I drive over with you, and the two of us wait at her house till the meeting's over.
Hey, that's terrific.
Yes, that was very thoughtful of her.
Well, I don't mean that. What I mean is, if she did that, then Lathrop must be pretty sure I'm going to get in. He wouldn't go out on a limb like that if he weren't pretty sure. I can't remember. Have you ever met Mrs. Lathrop?
Oh, I've seen her.
Mr. Lathrop?
No.
Just wanted to get it straight before...
Good evening, Carl.
Good evening. I'd like you to meet my wife, Julie, Mr. Lathrop.
How do you do?
Hello.
Won't you step inside? Rose.
Hello. I'm Rose Lathrop.
Mr. and Mrs. Sims, Rose.
Well, how nice to meet you.
Carl, how would you like to walk over to the club? It's only a few blocks.
Sure, fine with me.
It's a big thing with us at the club. Keep the body fit. It has a brain to serve. We won't be late, Rose.
See you later, Julie. I'll call you as soon as I know anything.
Okay, good luck.
Good luck. Not a chance, Julie. He'll be accepted.
You know, if you're going to keep on saying things like that, I think you ought to explain.
Yes, you're right. And I will explain just as soon as we're absolutely sure Carl's joining the club.
I think you've met all the members now, Carl. What do you think of us?
I'm impressed. Very distinguished and yet very friendly.
Fine group of men, Carl.
Mr. Lathrop.
think it's about time you started calling me Alfred, don't you?
All right. What I was going to ask you, are they all here? I expected a much larger group.
Oh, we're a very exclusive club, Carl. Yes, they're all here. All, that is, except your boss, J.D. Mason.
I was wondering about that.
Now, he had to go to Chicago tonight. He called me around 7:30, gave me his proxy for tonight's meeting, and that's 2 you can count on.
I'll need more than that.
Now, don't fret, Carl. You're the sort of man we want.
Getting close to time, Alfred.
Be right with you. That's Jim Corning. He's the club secretary. Now, this won't take long, I promise you, Carl. You just relax. Have a drink. A bar is all yours.
I think I'd fall flat on my face if I did.
Well, then don't. I'll see you later.
You know, I'm really taking a terrible chance with you, Julie.
What do you mean?
Well, I've done this twice before. I had this kind of talk with 2 other women when their husbands joined the club. Didn't get me anywhere, but at least I didn't get hurt.
Hurt? How could you get hurt?
They might have told their husbands. Their husbands would certainly have told Alfred. Oh, I could have been hurt, all right.
You know, honestly, you're frightening me.
I'm sorry. As soon as we hear from Alfred or Carla, I'll tell you the whole thing. Not that you'll be any less frightened when you hear it.
Has the equipment been checked out, Jim?
All okay, Alfred.
Isn't it about time for contact?
Yeah, just. Sol 3, calling Myra 7. Sol 3, calling Myra 7. Come in, Myra 7.
Myra 7 here. You may proceed, Sol 3.
Okay, Alfred. Remember, 3 seconds before you answer.
I know. This is Earthling 4825D. Earth designation Alfred Lathrop. I request audience with His Excellency Algus 2J.
Audience granted. Proceed.
Your Excellency, I wish to place in nomination for enrollment in your service the Earthling locally designated Carl Sims.
Communication with another planet? Another planetary system altogether? From a scientific standpoint, it's not impossible. We can bounce messages off satellites and send them halfway around the Earth without distortion. What if we didn't bounce them off a satellite, just sent them on out? Wouldn't they simply continue on through space until they found a receiver? I shall return shortly with Act 2. There are many people, some of them very wise too, who are firmly convinced that we are not alone in the universe. These wise men also believe that our intelligence is not necessarily unique. And there's logic in what they say. It's a very large universe to boast only one minor planet, which has been overrun by creatures who call themselves humans. Alfred Lathrop is engaged in a 2-way radio conversation which seems to confirm these wise men.
The Earthling, Carl Sims, is a young man with great potential for service to our cause. He will be, if he receives your approval, groomed for the presidency of the Gotham Engineering Corporation, which is dedicated to our purposes. He has the endorsement of Earthling 4164B, Earth designation J.D. Mason, who is now president and will soon become chairman of the board of Gotham. I personally guarantee the success of the Carl Sims conversion.
Permission is granted to convert Earthling Carl Sims. His working designation will be 5129 M.
Get that down, Jim.
Do not install entrant as Gotham president without approval here. This communication is at an end.
All right, Jim. Let's go out to the common room. You give me a minute alone with Carl, and then we'll have a customary drink to celebrate and adjourn the meeting.
First, don't you think we ought to set the time for the initiation?
Oh, yes, you're quite right. I think tomorrow evening.
Right.
I have a feeling about this one, and I don't want to waste any time.
Right. Tomorrow evening at 8:30.
Congratulations, Carl. You're in.
No kidding. I've been accepted?
Unanimously, my boy. Let me shake your hand. You're one of us now.
Wow. When, there's an initiation, isn't there?
Oh, yes, of course. It'll be soon. Now, you hold yourself ready at any time. Well, now, come on in and have a drink with your new fellow members.
Will it be all right if I just make a fast phone call to Julie first? I promised I would.
That's it. That must be Carl.
Do you want to answer it?
If you don't mind. Hello?
Is that you, Julie?
Yes, Carl. What happened?
I'm in, Julie. It was unanimous. I'm a member. I can't believe it. I'm a member of the executive club.
Congratulations. As long as that's what you want.
Is that all you have to say?
I said congratulations. Will you and Mr. Lathrop be home soon?
I can't stand all this enthusiasm. Yes, we're just going to have a drink and then leave. 20 minutes or so.
All right. I'm sorry.
Oh, forget it. See you later.
Okay.
He's been accepted?
Unanimously.
Well, we did expect it, didn't we? I poured you a brandy. You're going to need it.
Thanks. I hope now you'll tell me what this is all about.
Well, they're all robots.
What did you say?
Alfred and all the rest of them, every member of the executive club, they're all robots.
Oh, come on, Rose.
I know how it must sound when I just hit you with it. I've had years to grow accustomed to it. As accustomed as you can get.
But there isn't any such thing as robots, Rose. I mean, not that look and talk and act like people. There just isn't any such thing.
Androids. Robots. I don't know whether there's a proper word for them or not. Former people. Whatever you call them, they're not human anymore.
I just can't believe.
They're controlled by something alien.
Alien?
I mean, not of this earth.
Oh, it's just too much. You know that, don't you?
Oh, it's too much, all right. But that doesn't keep it from being true. Alfred is one of the charter members of the executive club. I have been living with a robot for, I guess almost 12 years now.
Well, let's say it's true. Why do you live with him?
What would you suggest? Divorce? Your Honor, on the grounds that my husband is a robot. They'd have me in a straitjacket in no time.
Oh, Rose, I'm so sorry.
Well, let's try not to let it happen to you. As I said, they're controlled by something alien, something not only not of this earth, but I'm convinced not even on it. And they're all very, very important men. I'm sure your husband has mentioned that.
Oh, yes, he keeps on and on about it.
They're powerful. They're rich and powerful, and they use their power, all their resources, to further the designs of the aliens who control them. I don't know exactly what their purpose is, those alien creatures and their robot lackeys, but it's against us, Julie. It's against the people of this earth.
I'm trying, Rose. Honestly, I'm trying, but you don't know how all this sounds.
I've lived with it for years, and I'm still as horrified as you are. Now listen to the rest of it, and then decide whether or not you can believe it.
All right, go on.
Well, this isn't the only club. There are at least a dozen of them around this country. They work in all different areas, industry, finance, politics, science, the arts, I don't know what all, but they cooperate like parts of a single machine. And maybe that's what they are. Sooner or later, they're going to take over.
Take over what?
Us. Everybody, everything. The earth.
Does anybody else suspect all this? Any of the other wives?
I don't know. Some of them must surely. I've been afraid to approach them.
Afraid? Why?
Well, if the men, including Alfred, oh, God, including Alfred, if they considered me a threat, I'm convinced they'd simply eliminate me.
Rose.
Like a shot, without a scruple.
Do you actually know all this? I mean, is it just a suspicion you have?
I know. Take my word for it, I know. Alfred's told me. Oh, not the whole story, of course. There are areas that seem to be pretty well sealed off. But he's told me enough.
I thought it was so secret. It seems strange he'd tell you if none of the other husbands told their wives.
I know how to make him talk, that's all. I figured out a way to short-circuit his computer.
His computer?
The thing they put where his brain used to be.
Beautiful evening. I'm glad we decided to walk.
I feel... you can't imagine how good I feel.
Oh, sure I can. It's a wonderful thing for a young man becoming a member of the executive club. More wonderful even than you know, Carl.
Oh, I do know. I really think I do.
You won't really know until after the initiation.
Do you have any idea when the initiation will be?
Well, I know exactly, but you won't know until the day comes.
So, you know as much as I do now. Julie, what do you think?
To tell you the truth, I just plain don't know what to think. Oh, it's a pretty fantastic story.
Too fantastic for me to have made up.
Oh, I don't think you're lying.
Unless you believe me, you have to think I'm deranged. Those are the alternatives.
I think I believe you. Not because it's a plausible story, but because I don't think you're lying, and I don't think you're off your rocker. So what can I do but believe?
It's true. Honest to God, Julie, it's true.
What about Carl? When will they do it? They haven't already, have they?
Oh, no, my dear. He's still all right. Don't worry about that. He'll be safe until the night of the initiation. Julie, I have a plan.
To help Carl?
Yes. And to put a stop to all of it. Put an end to the executive club.
Before they do anything to Carl?
If it works. I've had this plan for a long time, but I can't manage it without help. This is the first time anybody's even been willing to listen to me. Will you help me, Julie?
Oh, yes. I don't want to see Carl made into... Yes, I'll help.
It could be dangerous.
All right.
I thought I'd never... Oh, Julie, thank you. We'll do it. I know we'll do it. Now, the night of the initiation. We'll do it.
When will they have the initiation?
I don't know yet. They keep it a secret. The date of the initiation is never known to anyone but the members. Carl himself won't get more than a few hours' notice.
Well, then how can we...
Well, I can find out when it's going to be. I'll ask Alfred tonight.
And he'll just tell you?
I can make him tell me. See, their minds are computers, Julie. If you overload them, they get confused. And when they're confused, their inhibitors, or whatever you want to call them, they simply stop functioning. You can get most anything out of them. I've learned the technique very well. Alfred? Alfred?
What?
Are you awake?
Yes, I am now.
I brought you a glass of warm milk.
You woke me up to give me a glass of warm milk? Well, what for? To help me sleep? Well, that's crazy.
Well, you were tossing and turning and muttering and talking.
Talking? In my sleep?
Yes.
What did I say?
Oh, nothing anybody could understand, just mumbling and moaning and groaning. I just thought maybe a glass of warm milk would help you get some decent sleep.
Well...
And me, too. Here, come on now, drink the milk before it gets cold.
All right, thank you. Talking in my sleep.
Muttering. Alfred, who all was at the meeting tonight?
Well, you know, Carl Sims and the members. All but J.D. Mason. He couldn't...
Did you remember to call the plumber about the kitchen drain today?
The plumber? Why, I thought you were going...
Oh, well, those kids next door have been running through our yard, Alfred, and my zinnias are just a mess. I think you ought to go over and have a talk with Mr. Torrance about it.
Well, Mr. Torrance can hardly be expected to do anything about our kitchen drain after... But the kids...
Oh, Alfred, have you heard from that cousin of yours out in Wyoming who was going to have the operation?
Alice? Well, she doesn't have any kids, and even if she did, they wouldn't be running through our yard messing up your...
Alfred, are you going to write that check to the cancer fund, or did you want me to do it?
Cancer? No. Alice's operation was for gallstones. I think it was gallstones.
Alfred, I saw the most beautiful pantsuit at Randall's today. Would you mind if I bought it?
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Alice doesn't wear... And if she did...
Did you remember to have your driver's license renewed? Now, I know it runs out either this month or next. You shouldn't neglect things like that.
Listen, Alice, I mean Rose, and... If she wants to wear a pantsuit, I don't see what business that is.
Alfred, when is Carl Sims going to be initiated into the club?
And the Torrance children are too young to drive anyway, so why should I go over there?
When is Carl Sims going to be initiated into the club?
And as far as the kitchen sink is concerned, Alice,
When
I mean Rose...
is Carl Sims going to be initiated into the club?
Tomorrow night. Meeting 8:30.
Finish your milk, Alfred. You must be sleepy.
People with computers for brains. Another concept that isn't easy to believe. But then, the extraordinary is always hard to accept. The radio on which you're listening to this story was once considered some mad inventor's dream. So was the bright little bulb in the lamp at your elbow. So, here we have a mechanized brain housed in a human body. Don't call it totally beyond the realm of possibility before you hear what happens when I return shortly with Act 3. Aggression is not unusual in this world. It's characteristic of the individual, the tribe, the clan, the community, and perhaps especially the nation. And since it is so widespread among mankind, I don't believe we ought to be too surprised when at last we contact alien intelligence to find it present there as well. According to Rose Lathrop, there is such an intelligence which has taken over the executive club and is controlling its members in such a way as to further its own selfish and aggressive ends. Carl Sims has been approved for membership in the club. Julie doesn't like it, and they've quarreled.
Your toast is ready, Carl.
I don't want any breakfast.
All right. Pout.
I'll get that.
Go ahead.
Hello?
Alfred Lathrop here. Are you alone?
Well...
All right, answer non-committally. You understand?
Yeah, sure.
The initiation is set for tonight.
Already? Well, I thought...
Just yes or no. The meeting's for 8:30 at the clubhouse. You and I will have dinner together at the Red Barn and go straight to the meeting from there. You won't be home for dinner.
Well, all right,
That's the way it's been arranged.
Okay. I guess I can manage.
And not a word to anyone about the initiation. That's important.
I understand.
See you then. And remember, not a word.
Right.
Well, that was pretty cryptic.
I better go if I don't want to miss my train. I'll be late tonight. Don't wait dinner for me. I'll pick up a bite in the city.
You have to work late?
Yes. They've run into a snag on a special project I've been working on, and if we don't get it straightened out tonight, we'll fall behind schedule.
Was that the office calling?
Yes. Yes, that was Mr. Mason himself.
It wasn't Alfred Lathrop?
I told you who it was. What are you doing, calling me a liar now?
All right. How late will you be?
I've no idea. After I finish the job, whatever time that is, I'll come home. I've got to run, Julie.
Maybe that's exactly what you should do. Run.
Julie, come in.
Rose, Carl got a phone call just before he left for the office, and it was just a yes or no conversation from his end, and I think the initiation's going to be tonight.
Yes, you're right. Sit down, Julie. You don't look well at all.
It is tonight?
Yes. I forced it all out of Alfred. Can I get you anything?
No, I'm all right. I'm scared, that's all. I'm scared to death.
I think it's going to be all right. Now, he and Alfred will have dinner somewhere and then go to the meeting.
What are we going to do?
I told you. I have a plan.
For tonight? Will it work tonight?
As well as any other night. It's a very simple plan, really. The timing is pretty delicate, of course, but I'll take care of that. Here's what we have to do.
It's almost 8:30. Shouldn't we hurry?
No, we're just about right. They won't go into the inner room until a few minutes past 8:30. We don't want to get there until after that.
The inner room? Is that where the initiation... Is that where they do it?
Yes, but they won't this time. Not if we can help it.
I don't see how you can...
Trust me. I really do know what I'm doing.
It's surgery, you said.
Yes. There's a Dr. Lane who's a member of the club, and I assume he performs the surgery, although I've never quite been able to get it out of Alfred. That part seems to be pretty thoroughly locked in.
Dr. Lane.
You've heard of him, probably. He's just about the best brain surgeon there is anywhere. And why shouldn't he be? He's programmed for it.
I'm so scared.
It's going to work, Julie. I know it's going to work.
And you don't really know, though, do you?
There's a power switch somewhere. There has to be. If their brains, their computers are mechanical, and I know they are, then there's got to be a power source. And if you can turn power on, you can turn it off. It has to be that way.
You've never asked Alfred?
Oh, 1,000,000 times. They've really got that one sealed off.
Well, then what makes you think you can get somebody else to tell you?
Well, when they go into the inner room, they'll leave one man in the common room to guard the door. The Tyler, they call him. Isn't that sweet and old-fashioned?
But if Alfred won't tell you...
The Tyler, whoever it is tonight, has never experienced the kind of short-circuiting I'm going to hit him with. Now, I'm depending on the shock to break him all the way down.
And if it doesn't?
What have we got to lose?
Now, Carl, we're almost ready to go into the inner room where the initiation will take place.
Takes me back to my college days.
Except that there's nothing frivolous about this. Will one of you men hang up his shirt and jacket, please? All right, Carl. Sit here.
Okay. I thought it was going to be in the inner room.
That part comes later. Ready, Jim?
All ready.
Go ahead.
Ouch! Oh, what was that? He stuck a needle in my arm.
Nothing to be concerned about, Carl. You're too tense. You need to relax. That was just a mild tranquilizer. It's going to relax you and make you feel sleepy. Very contented and at peace with the world. You are getting sleepy, aren't you? See? Your eyes are closing, and it feels so good just to rest and let the tension drain out of you. And sleep. Rest and relax. Rest and sleep. Carl?
Yes.
Do whatever I tell you to do. But only what I tell you. Do you understand that?
I do what you tell me to do, but only what you tell me to do.
The executive club, which you have the honor of joining this evening, is controlled by a civilization which is ages older and infinitely more advanced than what we call civilization here on Earth. The beings who make up that civilization are our masters. They live on the 7th planet of a star known to Earthlings as Myra. They're in urgent need of our mineral and other resources. We serve them. They are our masters. We have been, as you will be tonight, partially mechanized, the better to serve them in all things. Eventually, all Earth people will be their servants. To us has been granted the privilege of pioneering in this. Is that all clear to you, Carl?
Yes. Clear.
All right. Is Dr. Lane ready, Jim?
All set. He's waiting. I'll stay out here. I drew Tyler duty tonight.
You will come with me now, Carl. Into the inner room.
All right, Julie. Let's go inside.
I thought you said there was going to be a doorman or whatever you called him.
Tyler. No, this door goes into the common room. He'll be guarding the door between the common and the inner room. Are you ready?
Ready as I can get.
Who's that?
Oh, just us, Mr. It's Jim Corning, isn't it?
Mrs. Lathrop? Well, you're not supposed to be in here, you know.
Oh, this is Julie Sims. Her husband is being initiated this evening.
Well, I'm glad to know you, Mrs. Sims. But you're not supposed to be here either, I mean.
Oh, well, that's a silly rule. Oh, didn't I hear that your wife was going out to the coast to visit her sister, Jim?
Well, the membership always felt... My wife doesn't have a sister. She has a brother.
Oh, that must have been Addie Clark. Is it true what I hear that Addie and her husband are on the point of separating?
Her brother isn't even married, so... Addie Clark? Well, yes, she's married. Yes,
your son, Bobby, was so good in that high school play last spring, Jim. Is he planning to be an actor when he grows up?
And I never heard if there was any trouble between Jerry and Addie. And no, Bobby's my son, not Jerry's. I have two sons, Bobby
I'll
and...
bet if your wife's sister was here, she'd start a women's auxiliary.
My wife isn't an actor, and the membership has always felt
now,
that...
What's the source of the power that keeps all of you going, Jim?
It's just never seemed to be a good idea, a woman's auxiliary, because...
What power source do you all use, Jim?
And my wife's brother isn't an actor. He's a professor of English.
What's your power source, Jim?
Solar energy. They showed us.
Jim,
how.
what college did you go to?
Harvard Law.
Did you ever meet Clarence Thorpe? Now, he went there.
And before that, Penn State. And I never heard of a Thorpe College. I went to...
Your wife's sister married a dentist.
My wife's
she?
brother is... His name isn't Clarence.
Where's the switch that turns off the solar energy,
His name
Jim?
is Frank, or there was a Harry I used to know, but I don't think
Where's the solar energy power switch, Jim?
But he never belonged to the membership has always felt that...
The power switch, Jim, where is it?
Over there, behind the portrait.
Oh, good. Good. I was afraid it would be in the inner room. Jim, what was the founder's name?
He was never married to my wife's sister. She doesn't even
where
have a...
does Bobby plan to go to college?
The founder's name wasn't Bobby. It was something more like...
Did you go home for dinner tonight?
Bobby's my son. He wouldn't be the founder because he's
I'm going to get the combination, Julie. Now take it down.
I think the founder was older, and anyway, the membership has always
What's
felt...
the combination to the safe, Jim?
And besides, Bobby's too young to join the club. You have
What's
to be...
the combination, Jim?
And my wife doesn't have a brother. I mean, a sister.
Give me the combination, Jim.
36 right, 7 left, 18 right, 30 left.
Got it, Julie.
Yes.
Open it.
I've got such a headache.
I'm sorry, Jim. How's it going, Julie?
18 right, 30 left. Oh, I've got it. It's open.
You ladies shouldn't be in here at all because...
Do you see the switch?
It's in here. The side wall of the safe.
Pull it.
But Rose, your husband...
My husband's been dead for years. Cut the switch.
I keep telling you ladies that...
He's done for. Let's get inside. Damn them. They've locked the door.
Rose, it's opening. Carl!
They were going to... My head... They were going to...
Catch him!
They gave me a shot. It was... I'll be all right now.
They're all finished. All of them.
Alfred, too?
Years ago. I've already done my grieving.
Are they dead?
They're turned off. Like a vacuum when you've finished with it.
They didn't do anything to you, did they, Carl?
No, but they were going to. They were going to.
All right. This is cleaned up. All we have to worry about now is the dozen or so other clubs scattered around the country. I hope my list is complete.
When you throw a switch and what appears to be a man collapses, you have to believe, don't you? The executive club is defunct due to a sudden shortage of members. But what about those other clubs? The one in Washington, for example. Wall Street. The Kremlin. Not a thing you like to dwell on, is it? I'll be back shortly. Carl Sims now has his own firm of engineering consultants. Gotham Engineering is out of business. And although Carl isn't quite the important man he once thought he might become, he's not unimportant. And he's not a robot. This gives both him and Julie a great deal of comfort, although they do have memories to shudder over. Our cast included Lenka Peterson, Gordon Gould, Carl Teitel, Arnold Moss, and Court Benson. The entire production was under the direction of Hyman Brown. This is E.G. Marshall inviting you to return to our Mystery Theater for another adventure in the macabre. Until next time, pleasant dreams. The CBS Radio Mystery Theater presents... Come in. Welcome. I'm E.G. Marshall. A story begins with an idea. It may be suggested by the imagination, or by an incident, or by a fact. And behind the idea, there is a thought. All of us have heard that the pen is mightier than the sword. A piece of writing can change the course of history by sending men into battle. The Declaration of Independence, for example. It is a piece of writing that strangely preoccupies George Monroe while at breakfast with his mother.
Who, Mother?
Butler. Silas Butler. I asked you if he isn't one of your correspondence school students. A promising writer, you said.
Yes, he is.
Well, his wife is dead from carbon monoxide poisoning. Here's the article in the morning paper.
How very odd. She's dead.
Our mystery drama, Your Grade is A, was written especially for the Mystery Theater by Roy Windsor and stars Bob Caliban and Joan Shea. There are many good correspondence schools with conscientious instructors to match. The student completes assignments and mails them in for criticism and encouragement. Silas Butler, who is 48, is one of many students whose writing efforts are carefully scrutinized by a young instructor named George Monroe. He does not know Butler personally, so the news of Mrs. Butler's death is to him only odd. But to her close friend, Judith Palmer, it is tragic and bitter.
Well, Kent?
Now, don't take that tone, dear. You'll have to pay Silas your respects. He's dazed by her death.
Well, he won't be for long.
That's unkind. Now, Silas knows how you feel about him. Let bygones be bygones. He's lost his wife.
He lost her a long time ago. I refuse to believe she took her own life. Oh, she had reason to wish to be dead, but Molly never would have done a thing like that, locking herself in the garage and starting up the car.
All right, if it makes you feel any better, say it was an accident. Now, it's 11 o'clock. I must get to work.
What did you and Silas talk about from 8 until now?
Not very much. I tried to console him, but, well, there isn't much to say in the face of a death.
Oh, poor Molly. Oh, it's so unreal.
Believe me, it is to him, too, and to me.
If the two of you hadn't been so buried in that chess game...
Oh, no. Our game had nothing to do with what happened.
Except to leave Molly with an empty evening. Where was she going, Kent? Did she say?
No. Silas and I were in the library. From the door, she said she was going for a ride, and she said good night to both of us.
When was that?
Oh, it's about 8 or so. At 9:30, Silas walked me to the driveway, and he noticed that his garage door was closed. It's a detached garage, as you know, 100 feet down the driveway. He seemed concerned. He asked me to walk with him to the garage.
And you found Molly on the cement floor?
Yes, after Sarge shut off the car engine, and we let the carbon monoxide escape.
Oh.
It was a thick haze. And then we went in and dragged Molly into the fresh air.
If you dragged her out right away...
It wouldn't have done any good. Carbon monoxide can poison a person in less than 2 minutes. If the person who's trapped can't break a window or open a door in 6 or 7 minutes, he or she is dead.
You know that for a fact?
Yes. I checked my medical dictionary late last night. As Silas's attorney, I had to inform myself on the subject.
Molly was smart enough to know about carbon monoxide. Why couldn't she have escaped?
Oh, because she didn't want to.
Oh.
You cling to your belief that it was an accident. Go ahead.
I have to, darling. I knew Molly.
Then why was the garage door shut? Why didn't she open the door?
Well, garage doors can stick. Ours does sometimes. That lock that goes into the cement floor often won't budge. Oh, I've scuffed my shoe many times trying to release it. Now, something like that may have happened.
Then Molly would have tried to break a window.
But they're up high and small. Is there a regular door, a house door on the side of that garage like ours? You know, the one that opens into the storage space for garden supplies?
Well, I think there is, but we didn't check. We got Molly out, and Silas ran into the house to telephone their doctor. And after that, it was pretty hectic. The doctor, the police, an ambulance. It's quite awful. Zach was very kind to Silas.
Oh, I'd forgotten Zach was the police officer in charge. What does Zach think?
I don't know. It seemed obvious to all of us.
Well, it's not to me.
Oh, Judith, you can't deny the facts.
Yes, I can. Because what happened just wasn't in Molly Butler's character.
Please come in, Mrs. Palmer?
Yes, Mrs. Kent Palmer.
Yes, oh, let me close the door. It can be noisy around here.
Yes.
Please sit down.
Thank you. I'll come right to the point, Mr. Monroe. Silas Butler is a student of this correspondence school.
Yes, he is, but...
Well, I don't expect that you'd know him personally.
Well, that's what I was going to say. The instructors never have a personal relationship with a student.
Well, Molly Butler was my best friend.
Oh. My mother read about her in this morning's newspaper. We were sorry to learn that she committed suicide.
I don't think she did.
Oh?
And that's why I wanted a confidential talk with you.
Well, I don't know, Mr. Butler. I know he was married. That's on his biography, but that's all I know. But how does our school... I really have no idea what you're driving at.
I visited Mr. Butler late this morning to pay my respects. He asked me to go through his wife's personal things, clothes and so on, and to dispose of them as I saw fit.
Yes.
Well, among Molly Butler's effects was a diary. I glanced through it. Wasn't Mr. Butler writing a murder mystery story as one of his assignments?
I'd have to check over my file of critiques. May I ask why you're interested in Mr. Butler as a writer?
Well, I know that he was working on a murder mystery story. Molly Butler refers to it in her diary.
For heaven's sakes. Why?
Because the characters in the story and the story outline are taken straight from life.
Well, that's true of much of what is written. We encourage students to write about what they know from real experience.
I understand that, and it makes sense.
Well, then?
Molly had read her husband's story. It wasn't completed, and that's what had her frightened.
I really don't follow you, Mrs. Palmer.
Well, Mr. Butler's story about an ordinary, ambitious young man who marries a socially prominent girl. They have a son. The couple is happy together, and the mother thinks that the sun rises and sets on her son. And then he's killed.
And that poisons the marriage.
How did you know?
Well, I assume that it did. After all, I am an instructor in writing. Unless one of the parents was to blame for the son's death, there wouldn't be any conflict, hence no story. How did the son die?
In an automobile accident. His father is driving him home from prep school, driving too fast and carelessly. The boy is killed. The father is injured, but recovers.
And the mother blames the father.
That's right. And that ended the relationship.
I see. The story you're telling me isn't a story at all, is that it?
That's it. It is the story of Silas and Molly Butler. And now Molly's dead. You're mentioned several times in Molly's diary, Mr. Monroe.
In what context?
Well, Mr. Butler had great respect for your encouragement and ideas. Had you exchanged thoughts about how the story ought to end?
I think so. This is very odd, Mrs. Palmer. I've never had an experience like this before.
Neither did Molly Butler. You see what I'm suggesting, Mr. Monroe?
It's too fantastic to believe.
Maybe, but I wish you'd think it over. I'm going to present it to my brother, Captain Zachary of the police department, to hear what he has to say.
Because you're not satisfied with how Mrs. Butler died?
No, I'm not. She was a very close friend. She's dead now. I owe it to her to find out how she died.
Thank you for seeing me, Captain Zachary.
Glad to. Come in, come in.
Thank you.
Sit down. My sister's already been here.
Well, what do you think, Captain?
Well, she's got a lively imagination, Mr. Monroe.
Then you don't think there's anything to it?
To what? You know, she never came out and said what she thinks. Of course, I didn't give her much of a chance. I was at Butler's house when the ambulance took his wife away, so my knowledge is firsthand.
And you think it was suicide?
Well, that or accidental death. I'd say the latter. Silas Butler would prefer that. Mrs. Butler was stretched out on the garage floor.
Which means she got out of the car to reopen the garage door. Why had it closed? That doesn't make any sense.
Well, it could have blown shut.
But all garage doors can be unlatched from the inside.
I know that, I know. I don't believe the door blew shut or that she tried to get out. Mrs. Butler, as you know from what my sisters told you, was an unhappy lady.
So the verdict is suicide.
Except for the fact that we found her on the floor. The explanation for that is that she closed the garage door, started the car in the dark, changed her mind, thought of escaping, then changed her mind again, and she took her life.
Well, did Mrs. Palmer tell you what she'd read in Mrs. Butler's diary?
Oh, I've glanced through it.
She was afraid of the parallel between her life and his murder story.
Well, if he's a writer, he'd spill out some of his own life in what he writes. Isn't that how writers work?
Well, sure, but what's funny is how Mr. Butler struggled to find the right ending for his murder mystery. It's all here, Captain.
What's that?
My critique of his work. Mr. Butler and I exchanged a lot of thoughts about how to end his story.
Would you explain that, please?
Well, everyone who reads knows the old devices employed in ending a murder mystery. Mm-hmm. The butler did it, or the poison pill taken by mistake, mushroom soup, or that kind of thing.
Yeah.
All known and stale. Now, I'm referring to premeditated murder.
I understand. And your critiques?
Well, Mr. Butler thought that a suggestion of mine about using carbon monoxide had merit.
I see. And, you're feeling guilt because you made the suggestion.
I don't know how I feel, but it certainly is odd that carbon monoxide is what caused the death. Well, that's the poison he decided to use, and I suggested it.
Well, did he indicate how he planned to use it?
No, I didn't either.
Yeah, it's a deadly poison, of course, and people are careless about it. We have accidental deaths all the time because a person starts up his car with the garage doors closed or only partly open. That gas works fast. I don't see anything sinister in Mrs. Butler's death.
I'm glad you don't. It makes me feel better.
My sister seems to think that Mrs. Butler's death wasn't suicide or accidental death. You know what's left.
Yes.
And that's a very serious implication.
I know it. And I hope she's wrong.
Look, leave your critique, huh? I'll see if I can make a matchup between your suggestions and what happened. But I don't like it. I know Silas Butler. I don't think he'd commit murder.
Good heavens, George. You seriously think that Mr. Butler used you to help him plan a murder?
Well, I know it sounds weird.
Oh, it's unbelievable. He'd have to be mad.
We don't know what really happened, but Captain Zachary is going to investigate again.
Well, what's there to investigate?
Well, little details.
Such as what?
Oh, I don't know. For instance, why was the garage door closed?
Well, because the poor woman trapped herself and was dead before she could get it open.
But that doesn't make sense. A person doesn't go into a garage to get a car and close the garage door before the car is backed out.
Well, not unless the person wants to take his own life. But it's obvious. That's why the report was suicide.
But Mrs. Butler was found on the garage floor.
Well, you're just looking to make a mystery out of a simple tragedy, George.
Yeah, maybe.
Of course you are. Mrs. Butler went into the garage, purposely closed the garage door, and started up her car. How else could the garage door have been closed? Oh, will you and Mrs. Palmer next imagine that someone waved a magic wand and closed it?
We began with the power of the pen. Plato's Republic created Western civilization, and some of Leonardo's reflections led to the airplane. But murder by correspondence? Or are Mrs. Palmer and the writing instructor, George Monroe, imagining the idea when the evidence does not support it? We'll find out when I return with Act Two. Mr. Longfellow said once that what a writer asks of his reader is not so much to like as to listen. That applies here. Silas Butler wanted his correspondence school instructor, George Monroe, to listen to his ideas for a murder mystery story. George did, and supplied him with a device, the use of carbon monoxide as the poison. Then Mrs. Butler died from carbon monoxide poisoning. But her best friend, Judith Palmer, is not content with the explanation of suicide or accidental death. It is the evening of the day after the tragedy.
Judith, my dear, I know Silas Butler. He's both a client and a friend, and I can't conceive of him or anyone writing a story of premeditated murder and then acting on it in life. All right, what does the writing instructor say?
Well, he's puzzled because it was he who suggested carbon monoxide.
I see. Then if he's a writing expert, have him figure out how it was done. I don't think he can, because the police are satisfied that Molly's death was, well, because you prefer it, an accident.
Why do you say I prefer it, Kent?
You said so before. You can't imagine Molly taking her own life. Well, I can. She hasn't been a happy person since her son was killed.
By his father?
Oh, Judith, dear, please, don't say such a thing. Silas was speeding and he and the boy had a serious accident. It does happen, you know. Silas loved his son. And you simply must not say that he killed him. That's unfair.
Well, perhaps. But you know what their lives have been like since it happened. He was very depressed when I saw him around noon.
Yeah. Well, I told him I'd stop by later this evening to discuss the funeral and other details.
Oh, Kent, what will happen to him now?
I'll find out. He's all alone.
Yes, all alone. No accusing eye on him. Molly always looked at him that way.
Oh, Silas Butler is not a criminal.
Molly thought he was. Once.
Oh, Kent. Come in.
How are you, Silas?
All right.
You alone?
Yes. Family arrives tomorrow. Molly's relatives. I've only got my mother. Let's sit down.
You sure you're all right?
Oh, yes. I'm still stunned. This will hit me later on, all its reality. Thanks for coming over. Judith stopped in about noon and took charge of Molly's things. I'm grateful to her.
Ah, she's grief-stricken. Do you feel up to talking?
Yes.
What about you, Sanderson?
I don't know. Sell the house, of course. I can't go on living here. Ever since that automobile accident, life's held nothing for me. Molly never recovered from the loss of our son. All that sustained her was her loathing for me. I'll always see her accusing eyes.
Oh, now, Silas, you'll forget that in time.
I hope so. It was an accident. I'm to blame for that, but do you think I wanted to have my son killed? I'd rather have died myself. I wish I had.
I know. Why last night?
Pardon?
Why did Molly choose last night to leave the house and have this accident?
I can't answer that. She'd been going into long periods of depression. I don't know why she went out. She often did that at night.
Just to escape?
Yes. She didn't want to be with me.
Well, did she object to our chess game?
I don't see why she should have. Playing chess is a better way to spend an evening than most other ways. You thrashed me last night.
Well, moving your knight to Queen Bishop 3 was a mistake, you know.
Yes, I guess it was.
No, you didn't think so at the time. You got up and walked over to the library window.
I did? I've forgotten.
Yes, you did. I wondered at the time why you left the chessboard, and I asked you. Don't you remember what you said?
I can't say that I do.
Well, you said it was checkmate and that the game was over. Even though I had a rook bearing down on your knight. Still, you moseyed over to the window with an air as if you'd won the game. You do remember that, of course.
Sort of, yes.
Yeah, and then you looked out the window.
What's that mean, Kent?
Well, that was only a minute after Molly left the house. Isn't that right?
Yes, I think it is. Why?
Well, the library windows command a clear view of the garage at the end of your driveway.
Yes.
Was the garage door open?
I don't think it was. If I thought anything, I'd have figured that Molly had already left. Why?
Well, we should have investigated.
How could we have anticipated any trouble? I've never given much thought to whether or not the garage door was up or down. Why should I have? Do you?
No. Well, you got a point. Mine is that by the time I checkmated you, Molly was in the garage, dead.
That means, Kent, you've got your doubts, too.
It means no such thing, Judith. I just tried to reconstruct the scene, that's all.
All right. Silas got up from a chess game he was about to lose and walked over to the window. Now, that doesn't make sense. That's not the way chess players behave, is it? Of course it isn't. Si went to that window in order to get a view of the garage. Now, darling, is there anything else you remember?
No. Your imagination is beginning to run away again, Judith. I suggest that we leave any further investigation to Zach and his police department. Huh?
Well, I hope we've aroused his suspicions.
We? You and who else?
George Monroe. Zach telephoned me while you were out. Mr. Monroe called on him and gave him the critiques of Silas's writing. Zach thought they were interesting. He thought Silas had written a pretty good mystery story.
Well?
And Mr. Monroe thought that Molly's death ought to be reinvestigated.
Oh, no. Molly hasn't even been buried, and you and Monroe want to subject Si to more suffering? I don't like that at all. I really don't. I didn't visit Cy tonight with doubts in my mind.
Well, you asked him why he went to the window.
No, I only mentioned that he had gotten up from the chess game and gone to the window, that's all.
Why? That was odd, wasn't it?
I wouldn't say that. Cy is a harried man. Chess gets his mind off his unhappiness. I simply wondered why it was last night of all nights that Molly chose to have an accident.
Well, maybe Cy had just figured out how to commit the murder in his story.
I doubt that he would have shared such an idea with his wife.
Well, you never know. You ought to read Molly's diary.
I'm not going to. And frankly, I've had enough of this. You and Zach pursue it. I'm really tired of it. So if you'll excuse me, I think I'll turn in.
All right. Oh, is our car in the garage or in the driveway?
I left it out. Why?
Well, if he's still awake, I may drive over and talk with George Monroe. Oh, Mr. Monroe, I know it's late.
Well, that's all right, Mrs. Palmer. It's not that late. It's only 10:30. Oh, I'm never in bed before midnight. Please sit down.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I understand you saw my brother, Captain Zachary. You know, he was impressed, both by Mr. Butler's writing and by your critiques.
Well, thank you. From what I had criticized about Mr. Butler's story, I could easily reconstruct it. The story does parallel his life with Mrs. Butler.
Yes.
Now, I paid special attention to his struggle, with my help, to find a way of using carbon monoxide as a poison without the police being able to detect it.
Did you reach any conclusion?
No. And yes. No about the device, the novel idea of killing with a gas, but yes about your suspicions.
Oh?
In Mr. Butler's story, the man becomes bitter and abusive because the wife withdraws from him and silently accuses him of the death of the son.
Yes, exactly what happened between Cy and Molly Butler.
Well, furthermore, there were introspective passages in which the man dreamed of being free from the wife's accusing eye.
Oh.
That's when he began to think about murder. The wife sensed it, but she couldn't do anything about it. It was as if she were mesmerized.
Well, it fits, doesn't it?
It seems so. What strikes me is the psychology of the thing. Was he guilty of the boy's death?
Through negligence. It wasn't deliberate.
And Mrs. Butler never overcame her loss?
No.
Well, as you said, it fits.
But how do we prove it?
Well, Captain Zachary is reinvestigating.
Oh, it needs more than police investigation. It requires some kind of creative inspiration.
How it was done.
That's right. How could it have been done? Cy Butler and my husband were playing chess in the Butler's library. Toward the conclusion of their first game, when my husband had him on the defensive, Mr. Butler rose and walked to the window.
Did he? And he thought he was losing the game?
That seemed odd to me, and I mentioned it to my husband.
What did Mr. Butler do at the window?
I don't know. Looked out. It commands a clear view of the detached garage. But now, what could he have done from the library window that would have had any connection with Molly's death?
Darned if I can imagine.
Oh, I wish you'd try, Mr. Monroe. You're a creative man.
Well, I know, but Butler and I both struggled to invent a gimmick for killing a person with carbon monoxide poison without being detected. We hadn't succeeded.
Well, he may have.
Yes. I wonder what it could be. Assuming we're not crazy. It's a puzzler.
Oh. What are you thinking about? You've got an abstracted expression on your face.
Something Mother said earlier this evening.
Oh?
Now, what was it? I'd explained your interest in this fantastic notion. Mother agreed that if Mrs. Butler didn't commit suicide, then her death must have been accidental because she couldn't get out of the garage.
Yes, go on.
But the idea of murder was nonsense. She wondered... Yes, here's what she wondered. She said, you and Mrs. Palmer next imagine that someone waved a magic wand and closed it. Meaning, of course, the garage door.
Waved a magic wand?
It's stuck in my head, and I've given it some thought.
Oh, Mr. Butler did go to the window soon after Molly left the house.
But what kind of magic wand could he have waved?
Think about it. Think about it, Mr. Monroe. I will, too. What your mother said might be the very clue we're searching for.
Judith Palmer has known Silas Butler for many years, and she knows him as a rather insolent man. We don't know that. With his friend, Kent Palmer, he seemed to be like any man suffering from a grievous loss. But according to what he has written and from what we have learned from his wife's diary, Mr. Butler might be capable of committing a major crime. How is the question? I'll return shortly with Act 3. You drive me crazy, and I wish you were dead are two commonplace expressions that a wildly angry person has been known to use. They're not meant to be taken literally. They sum up a condition that is unbearable and a wish to be realized. Apologies usually follow. Both sentences, however, seem to apply to Silas Butler. His wife's silent accusation was driving him mad, and he may have wished her dead. It's the next morning. George Monroe again is seated opposite Captain Zachary of the police department.
Good morning, Captain.
Good morning. My sister telephoned that she'd seen you again.
Yes, were my critiques helpful?
Yeah, very. Butler writes well. That's a sad story he tells.
You can understand from the character in the story that he would commit murder.
Yeah, well, maybe. You never know about a murder. Most murders just occur. Person loses his temper, goes crazy, but a premeditated murder, well, that's pretty rare.
Well, I agree. As a writer, it comes down to motive. In his story, Mr. Butler's character does have motive.
Yeah.
May I make a couple of suggestions?
Sure, go ahead.
Well, talk to Mr. Kent and to Mr. Butler and ask them to recall everything they can about their chess game.
You mean about Butler walking to the library window? My sister mentioned that. Anything else?
But take another look at the diary. There may be a clue there.
Why? You think she may have anticipated her death?
She might have.
Anything else?
Well, it's this foolish idea I have because my mother said something about waving a magic wand.
Uh-huh.
There could be something to it.
Yeah, sure. If we can find the magic wand. Any ideas?
Offhand, no, but would it be improper of you to ask Mr. Butler if he'd had any repairs made recently to his house?
Such as what?
I don't know, but if I wanted to trap someone in a garage with an engine running, I might dream up some gadget that would close the garage.
Uh-huh, I see. Well, a lot of homes have posts by their driveways. You stop your car, push a button, the garage door opens or closes.
Yes, that's the kind of thing I mean.
And if the garage has a button which does the same thing, it opens or closes the garage.
Do you know if the Butlers had that kind of device?
Yeah, but I'll find out when I examine the garage. That's a good suggestion, Mr. Monroe. That is, if we're going to pursue the murder idea.
Well, don't you see any validity to it?
It's possible, but don't be disappointed if our original verdict holds. Mrs. Butler killed herself, or she died accidentally.
Oh, Zach. Come on in.
No, let's stay out here, huh? Well, how are you, Si?
Still dazed, but having the family around helps. Molly's relatives arrived an hour ago.
When's the funeral?
Tomorrow at 11. Anything special you wanted to see me about, Zach?
No. Just wanted to ask if I could look around the property.
Of course. The garage?
Yeah, I'd like to, look it over. You don't mind?
No, feel free. It's closed. Punch the button on the side of the door, on the upright.
Oh, you've got one of those, huh? An electrically operated door.
Yes, very, very convenient. Oh, what's your interest, Zach?
Oh, just satisfying myself. My sister was Molly's best friend.
And she can't believe what happened. Neither can I. Any of us. You've given your verdict, Zach. I don't understand why
Well, assuming that Molly did not commit suicide.
I don't want to believe that either. I prefer to believe it was an accident. She had gotten out of the car. We Found her on the floor.
Yeah, well, what bothers me, Si, is why she couldn't have gotten out of the garage.
Carbon monoxide can poison in a minute and a half.
You know that for a fact?
Well, yes, I've done some research. For a story I've been writing, I take a correspondence course. It was something to do. No, that's true about the poison, you know. In 6 minutes, a person is dead.
So there's Molly sitting behind the wheel of the car with the engine running and the garage door closed. See, what I can't explain is why she didn't shut off the motor and get out of the garage.
Well, neither can I. But what's even more strange is why she was at the wheel and the garage door was closed.
Yeah, that is mighty strange. Could the garage door have come down by itself?
I don't know. I suppose so. You know these gadgets. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't.
Yeah. Is there a switch inside the garage for raising or lowering the doors?
Well, sure, but what if it didn't work?
Any other way of getting out of the garage?
Well, there's a regular door on the side of the garage toward the back. We kept it locked against prowlers.
Okay, I'll look around again. I said the other night how sorry I was about Molly. I'm just as sorry for you.
But why in the world do you want to know the name of the butler's carpenter?
Or electrician, Judy. Either one.
Well, it may be mentioned in Molly's diary. You returned it to me. Let me look. Zach, you're being very mysterious.
Well, you want me to reinvestigate the death? Well, this is part of it. The garage is electrically controlled.
Of course, now I remember it was modernized about 2 months ago. But what does that have to... Oh, here it is. Yes, Mr. Day did the work. Molly writes here that he installed an overhead door and... Yes, it works by electricity. Push a button and it operates. And there's another switch on a post at the entrance to the driveway. Or there was.
They had it removed.
Yes, it was an attractive nuisance. Children used to punch the button just for fun. The door was always going up and down. Mr. Day was the carpenter. Why, Zach? What's so intriguing about the butler's garage door?
Well, there's another way to open an electrically operated garage door. You don't have to punch a button.
Oh?
You can use a hand switch. You know, like that gadget for switching TV channels?
I didn't know that.
Butler left the chess table and walked over to the window.
Yes?
Which commanded a view of the garage.
Yes.
Where he could have seen Molly enter the garage. Don't jump to conclusions, Judy. I think we've got it, but I want to be sure. Now, when Silas returned to the chess table, did he have anything in his hand?
Kent didn't say. Oh, you mean he was carrying one of those remote control gadgets?
Exactly. I better talk with Kent.
I'll telephone.
No. Face to face. Silas is his friend, and this is a touchy subject. Silas and Monroe are trying to figure out how to commit murder with carbon monoxide. I think Silas came up with the answer.
Now, what's up, Zach?
Oh, more of the same, Kent.
Your suspicion that Cy Butler is a criminal, huh?
Yeah, he may be, Kent.
You seriously think that? Because of the story he wrote?
Well, if it hadn't been for the diary and the correspondence school critiques, he might have gotten away with it.
You mean he did do it? But how?
Well, I don't exactly know yet. Tell me, when Butler walked to the library window, he was in bad shape in the chess game, right?
Yes, I found it odd that he did.
Oh, now tell me about his walking back. Now, just try to think back, huh? Try to remember exactly what he did.
Oh, when he got up, he had a pawn in his hand. One of mine. He captured it with his knight. He kind of rolled it around his hand, and I wondered why he had left the table, so I glanced after him. He placed the pawn in his jacket pocket.
And when he returned to the table?
Well, nothing.
Well, didn't he place the pawn behind the board?
Yes. After he sat down, I heard it.
You heard his pawn?
Well, I mean, it clinked in his pocket against his cigarette lighter.
A wooden pawn against a lighter?
No, a metal pawn. I didn't like Cy's chess set because it was made of metal alloy, and the pieces were quite dramatic, but I prefer the traditional wooden ones.
Mm-hmm. Oh, what did he do?
I told him not to squirrel away the pawn. And he said, he took it out.
With the lighter?
No. That's funny. When we set up for the next game, he asked me for a light.
Oh, then what he had in his pocket wasn't his lighter.
Well, come to think of it, no. That is funny. But I remember the clinking sound.
I think the carpenter or the electrician can tell me what it was he had in his pocket. I may need you later in the day, Kent.
All right. You've given me a bad turn, Zach.
Uh-huh. It's nothing compared to the one Silas gave Molly.
Now, what's this urgent business all about, Zach? Hello, Kent. Judith.
Hello, sir.
Close the door, would you, Kent?
And, who is this? George Monroe, Mr. Butler. I'm very sorry about what happened. Thank you. Well, Zach, now why did you ask me to come down to the police station?
Because what I'm about to say is better said here than in a house of mourning.
What is it you have to say?
You murdered Molly Butler.
I murdered my wife. Anything else?
Isn't that enough?
I suppose I have you to thank for this preposterous charade.
I'll take some of the credit. Give the rest to Molly's diary and to this young man here.
Monroe?
Yes, George Monroe. You wrote a murder mystery, didn't you? Or half-wrote one, I should say. What you and Monroe hadn't figured out was just how a person could be killed from carbon monoxide poisoning without being caught. Isn't that true?
Go on. You seem to know that.
Monroe couldn't figure it out, but you could. The idea came to you after Mr. Day remodeled your garage. He installed overhead sliding doors which can be opened and closed by touching a switch.
Certainly. Where's the mystery?
Well, Day also supplied you with remote control switches. You hold the switch in your hand, press a button, and the door goes up or comes down. And that's how you close the garage door with Molly seated behind a running engine.
Oh, Zach, that's preposterous.
No, it isn't. Not for a rejected man.
You came to hate Molly.
Because she hated me.
And you murdered her. You closed the garage door.
She could have opened the door by pressing the button on the inside.
Not if you held down the close button and neutralized her switch. And that's what you did. Kent, how long was he at that window?
3 or 4 minutes.
Yeah, more than enough time for Molly to become dazed, and then she panicked. And from the story you were writing, she knew you planned her murder, and there she was with you carrying out your plan. She was between the back of the car and the garage door praying that the switch would work. And it didn't, because you had neutralized it. And even then, she must have tried to turn off the car engine because we found her on the floor next to the front door.
Kent's my lawyer.
When you took the pawn out of your jacket pocket, it clicked against something.
Yes, my lighter.
Then why didn't you use it to light your cigarette instead of borrowing a match from me?
Because you didn't have your lighter, Si. That pawn clicked against your remote control gadget. And let's not overlook the garage side door. You had locked it. And don't repeat that the door was never used. It was used all the time, because it opened in on Molly's garden supplies.
Anything more?
Molly didn't have the remote control switch with her. Had you told her it had been mislaid?
You can't prove...
Oh, yes, I can. Yes, I can, Si. Your own story. Your talks with Mr. Day about the use of the hand remote switch. And Molly's diary. We'll find both switches, and I imagine the key to the regular door. Si, you're under arrest for premeditated murder.
Perhaps you guessed just how Silas Butler almost got away with murder. But what a strange way for him to get caught. A piece of writing undid him. That and Mrs. Palmer's evaluation of the characters of Silas and his wife. And although Butler, in his way, was a tragic figure, murder is an intolerable offense. Confronted with the evidence against him, he made a full confession. I shall be back shortly. We've come full circle with the quote about the pen being mightier than the sword. A correspondence student finally completed his murder mystery, which was his plan for a real-life murder. A diary, an imaginative young instructor, and careful police investigation combined to rob Silas Butler of his perfect murder and of his life. Our cast included Bob Caliban, Ralph Bell, Joan Shea, and Joe Silver. The entire production was under the direction of Hyman Brown. This is E.G. Marshall inviting you to return to our Mystery Theater for another adventure in the macabre. Until next time, pleasant dreams.